But Richard Wolff is not a dream. He's Professor of Economics, founder of Democracy at Work, host of Economic Update, and author of Understanding Socialism. Professor Wolff, thank you very much for coming back on the Mother of All Talk Shows. It's been a while, but I've been following your output, so I know your perspective on these things, but many in the audience will not. I wonder if I could start by asking you to describe the economic situation in the United States this day.
Well, first of all, thank you, George Galloway, for your kind words. I appreciate them, and I share your dreams on that subject, and I look forward to the call to Downing Street if I can get your voice instead of the awful voices that normally answer the phone over there.
Exactly.
Here's the situation in a nutshell. The United States, as you know, had a dismal failure in responding to COVID-19. We recently crossed 1 million dead Americans from the disease, and countless millions who are still struggling with it. We have a very strong surge of it now. And so our people have gone through a really terrible 2.5 years of that. As if that weren't enough, we had the crash, the economic crash, which people don't remember, although they should, is the second worst collapse of capitalism, second only to the Great Depression of the 1930s. And that took the last 2.5 years. As if that wasn't enough. And to give you just one statistic about the economic crash, more than 1/2 of the American working class, which numbers our worker numbers that the government gives us, it's about 150 to 160 million Americans are in the labor force. Over 80 million, that is over half of them, were unemployed for some period of time between March of 2020 and the end of 2021. Every family was affected, every community, every small business dependent on these workers and their wages has been very badly hurt. And now, over the last 12 months, as if to make a bad situation worse, we have had a very bad inflation. The government numbers, 8.5%. Compared to, for example, the annual rate of increase of wages in this country, on average, 4%, less than half the increase in prices, which means if you're even among the minority of workers who got any increase at all, the increase you got, with very few exceptions, still leaves you with a lower standard of living than you had 6 months or a year ago. And the final thing, the inflation is so bad, lasting so long, far beyond what the Federal Reserve, our central bank, predicted, what it promised. It is devastating an already really badly hurt working class. We are now told that we are in the early months of an attempt to control the inflation by raising interest rates. And please recognize, we are a more indebted country today than at any time in America's history. The government is more in debt, corporations are more in debt, and households are more in debt. All of the burden of that debt is now going to be raised by raising interest rates. Literally, we are an economy that is in disarray, in a kind of disintegration, with policy going herky-jerky this way, that way, and all of it coming down on the mass of the people, as a result of which the tension in our society, the political divisions, literally the shooting of innocent children, all of these things are emerging out of a society that to more and more people seems to be spinning out of control, especially in the economy.
Well, look, as someone with American blood in my veins, I hear the pain of that survey you just gave us quite acutely. Many others, though, in the world will be wondering why, with America such a sick man, that the political class does not put as much energy and effort and ingenuity into fixing its own problems at home as it does seeking to cause murder and mayhem across the world.
Well, I think the explanation lies in our history pretty much over the last half of a century. We have a much more unequal United States today than we did, for example, at the end of World War II. If you had ranked countries in terms of the gap between the richest and the poorest, we would have been one of the least unequal countries in the 1960s and 70s. European countries would have been worse than we. All of that has been reversed. We have now the dubious distinction of being the most unequal among the advanced industrial countries. And it's gotten worse and worse. And one consequence has been that politics has become literally the plaything of the tiny 1%, 2%, 3% at the very top. They have the time, they have the money to buy the political process, to buy the media, without which our politics does not work, to sustain the army of lobbyists who do most of the actual writing of legislation and the pressuring. The result is that for the mass of people, literally day by day, year by year, the political apparatus is more and more distant. There's a joke going around that the only thing more distant and beyond our reach than the American dream has become is the American political scene. That's even further gone. What I'm trying to get across is our politicians have learned that they have to do what the money tells them to do, or else the money will go to their adversary, they will be out, and the money person will be in. And so they say, and some of them have said it to me personally, I might as well do what the money wants, because if I don't, they'll get someone else who will, and that won't make anybody else better off. I'm still having at least a few ideas about what the mass of people want. But I think you can see now that more and more Americans, and not just left-wingers, right-wingers and people in the middle, understand that our political representatives don't represent anything other than the very top. People used to say it, but it has a hard reality now. And you can see it, for example, even in the extremity, the unspeakable extremity of the mass shootings that we now have every week or two in this country, including of children, young children, that there is a clear awareness that nothing is going to change. The National Rifle Association went ahead with its annual meeting, reiterated its position that the best solution to these shootings is to have more guns distributed more widely than they already are. We have the politicians who tell us they're going to do nothing, although the way you do that in this country is to say that you are praying for the victims and their families. But that's the sure sign that that's where your activity is going to be over when you're done with your prayers. So there's a kind of depression. There's no nice word to say it. There's a depression about the politics in this country. If, as you suggested before, Mr. Trump runs and wins, it will be less because he's all that exciting, but it'll be that the mass of the people who he does not have are so disgusted, so alienated, so distant from the whole rhetoric and theater of politics that they will absolutely lose interest and not participate.
And emblematic of all of this is a White House adorned, if that's the word, by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. There's not much more you can say about Biden, and so I won't. But the more I see of Kamala Harris, the more I wonder if she's on the same planet as me. And Trump beats either of them. He beats them by a country mile if he is the nominee of the Republicans in 24. Surely something has to give, Richard.
Yes, and I think, and I know that I have to be careful, we all do, not to let our wishes overwhelm our intellect and what we can really see and demonstrate. But having said that, and with that self-awareness, we are seeing a level of left-wing labor militancy that I have never seen in my lifetime. I was born in the middle of the United States in the state of Ohio. I've lived and worked here all my life. I have never, not in the 1960s, never have I seen the kind of bottom-up agitation among working people, particularly younger ones, who are now demanding changes in their workplaces, demanding the right to go ahead and form a union, often working outside of the old traditional union apparatus because it hasn't kicked into gear, at least not yet, with a few exceptions, and those exceptions are important. But I'm seeing young people, including in the university classes that I still teach, that give me real hope. That generation, now in their 20s and 30s, they're not being fooled by any of this. They understand exactly where they are. And by the way, they do not favor Donald Trump. Those Gallup and other polls that he gets show that the younger you are in America, pretty across the board, the further to the left you tilt. And that was not always the way it was. And that does give me hope. Everything being done by the Jeffrey Bezos of this world or the Elon Musks of this world to squash the efforts of unions in fast food, in retail, in Amazon, in all the big employers here, they've failed. They cannot stop it. It is getting bigger and bigger. Literally, if you walk into a Starbucks coffee shop here in the United States, half of what you overhear as you order your coffee is conversations among the workers, between the workers and the customers about a union, about a decent job. And this is part of what's going on. The media will be the last ones to understand it and even later to report on it. For them, the excitement is on the right. But I can tell you that I am very reinforced, I am encouraged, and that's not a strong enough word, by what is happening below the radar among working people, particularly the young.
A message of hope on which to end. Professor Richard Wolff, the maestro, thank you for your tour of the American horizon. Thanks for joining us.